think, it just shows the power of mindset, right? Because if you say you can't play on clay or you hate clay, then, you've pretty much lost before you've even started. So, whereas if you give yourself a chance to get through the earlier matches and, get used to the movement a little bit, as we know he's kind of struggled with a little bit in the past, things can happen.
I think she's a great player to watch. For me, I don't identify significant weaknesses in her game. Some of the commentators might see that between specific matches or tournaments or whatever, but overall she's shown she's got the whole package. It's just whether she delivers it at each tournament.
Starting to string a little bit of consistency together, because obviously we've seen it in the Grand Slams, but we hadn't seen it so much at regular tour level. But as we said before, some players, they go straight to Grand Slams and do well, and then they struggle to find a consistency on the tour, and others, it's the other way around, and it takes them a longer time to find their way into a Grand Slam. Welcome back to the Getting Grip podcast. All right, it's Rome's just wrapped up. It was the first final without Rafa or Novak since, I think, 20 years ago. So it was a bit of unfamiliar territory, at least on the men's side. And on the women's side, we had a little bit of an injury, not crisis, although it did kind of appear like a crisis, because obviously she was pretty upset when it happened. There's been a bit of drama on both sides of the draw. Let's crack on with some questions to get straight into it. Test my knowledge. Have I been paying attention this week? Or am I just full of rubbish?
Yes, if anyone's wondering why my voice is a bit weird this week, I have got a cold, so bear with me. I'm sure the audio cleaning will make that better, won't it? Won't it, Ben?
We both have. No? We're both full of
yeah, we're both
anyway.
So you can enjoy our croaky voices. I always think I sound a little bit like a soul singer when I get a bit of a cold. Anyway, that's just me trying to make myself feel better, I suppose. Let's start with question number 1. So we're going to go straight into the meat of the men's draw. Medvedev won in Rome, obviously. He won a final out there, which is quite interesting. People have opinions about this topic. So what I want to know is how many clay titles has Medvedev won before? And your options are 0, 1, 3, or 5.
Well, it's definitely not 5. I feel like you're just baiting me with this question. I just want to go straight for the 0, but I'm like, something feels a bit off here. It's definitely low, so I would stick with either 0 or 1. No, he does say he hates it, so I feel like that'll only be actually true if he hadn't won one. So I'll go with the obvious. I'll go with the obvious answer. I'll go with the 0 before this week, obviously.
Yes, of course. Good. You listened to the question. Because indeed, you got the question answered right. It is indeed
Shock.
0. Before Rome, he has not won a title on the ATP Tour on clay. Medvedev's not a fan. It was a surprise to him as it was to anyone else that he won. But what do you think?
Oh, I like the little shimmy at the end. Did you see that?
Thank you. Yeah.
What do you mean, thank you? You didn't do it. I noticed that didn't he lose to Runa in another final or semi-final? No, it wasn't Runa. Maybe it was Tsitsipas or something. Oh, maybe I'm getting confused now. He did a dance, someone did a dance when they beat him, and then he basically copied it.
No. He did a dance when he beat Tsitsipas, if that helps.
Yeah, of course you would remember that because he's your favourite player. Anyway, but I don't know. I like it. It's something a bit different. As long as you're not being, overtly disrespectful. He was kind of doing it for his box, I suppose, just to try and have a little bit of fun, and we get content out of it. So you can't really complain too much, can you? I don't know. It's interesting from the power of mindset, right? Clearly, before when he's been saying he hates clay, he's been coming from a place of absolute truth for him, whereas I feel like this season, maybe because that's more of a thing, he's almost right, I need to prove people wrong that I can actually do this, and it's almost like that kind of adversity has almost spurred him on to like prove that actually he can do it. I don't know. It's weird. People find different ways to motivate themselves, right? But I think it just shows the power of mindset, right? Because if you say you can't play on clay or you hate clay, then you've pretty much lost before you've even started. So, whereas if you give yourself a chance to get through the earlier matches and get used to the movement a little bit, as we know he's kind of struggled with a little bit in the past, things can happen. So from one season finish, I think he didn't even win a match last year at Rome, to like the next year winning every single match. I don't know. It's kind of crazy. What do you think?
When you say about mindset, I always get thrown back to the Australian Open this year, with Andrei Rublev when he was told, "Oh, you're going to face Djokovic," and he was like, "Well, don't know if that's going to go very well." Immediately, you basically lost that match as soon as you've said it. And yeah, it's exactly right. You say you hate a surface, you're never going to produce your best tennis on it. So psychologically overcoming that is very important.
I think it's can be a bit of like a defense mechanism to say, "Oh, I don't like it." So like if you do lose, it's like, "Oh yeah, well I told you I didn't like it." Whereas to give yourself a chance to go out there and like try your best and get used to conditions and stuff, and then if you lose, you just say, "Oh well, at least I actually gave it my best shot and it didn't work out." I feel like some players can have that mindset where it's almost like they've almost set themselves up for an excuse to lose before they've actually played.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, now on to question number 2. Elena Rybakina. I'm still never sure how to say her.
We got to pick one, right? Pick a way of saying it and stick with it.
I think I've heard one of the ATP the WTA commentators say Rybakina, so I think we're going to go with that.
So you're going to go with the bike, and I'm going to go with the bark, the dog bark. That's the way I'm going to pronounce it.
Rybakina.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, it's a hard one to do. I just need someone to tell me. Once someone has told me, then I will say it that way. I'm very happy to be wrong. This isn't something I don't think I'm right on.
Why can't you just come out and tell us how to say it?
Yeah.
That'd be nice.
Do an Instagram post and just be like, you say it this way. Like, Rob McElhenney and Ryan Reynolds producing that video on how to say Rob McElhenney for all the Wrexham fans. I thought that was brilliant. If anyone hasn't seen that yet, go straight to that video.
I don't think I've seen it.
Watch that on YouTube after this. Anyway, Rybakina was seeded 7th in Rome. Now she's won it. Obviously, that was, you call it a surprise based on seeding, but coming off of a lot of tournaments where the other two big contenders have obviously won recently. It's not too surprising to see what we're being told is a big 3. Including a win by Elena. What I want to know is, what is her new ranking spot? So she was 7th when she entered Rome, and I want to know what her ranking spot is now. And your options are 2nd, 4th, 6th, or 7th.
Well, she's definitely not 2nd because that's Sabalenka. Like, Sabalenka's pretty clear, at least from when I last checked. Did you say 8th was an option?
No, 4th, 6th, and 7th.
Oh, right, okay.
So she hasn't moved at all, or she's moved up?
Yeah, so
she won't move down, will she?
7's, it's definitely not 7. It's 4 or 6. Well, if you win a Masters title, I feel like that's going to... Well, obviously it's 1,000 points. Mr. Obvious. Therefore, this is just me trying to buy time. You know what? I'll go for 4 because it's close to the big 3, but it's not quite there.
Are you sure?
No, but it's my answer.
Well done. It is the correct answer. Yes, Elena Rybakina is now in 4th place in a WTA ranking. So this dream of a top 3 that we seem to be seeing in these finals is now starting to become closer and closer to reality. And it also highlights the importance that if you're anywhere outside of the top 3, let's say, then the power of winning a Masters is actually quite huge because it will change your rankings quite significantly.
Well, I mean, like we said before, it depends how she did in this tournament last year. So I'd imagine she didn't get that far last year. So there would have been a big differential from last year, which would have pushed her up the rankings a lot more than obviously if she'd have got to the final or something last year. Because you're always trying to defend your points, because that's how it works. But yeah, it's good to see her, starting to string a little bit of consistency together. Because obviously we've seen it in the Grand Slams, but we hadn't seen it so much at regular tour level. But as we said before, some players, they go straight into Grand Slams and do well, and then they struggle to find a consistency on the tour, and others, it's the other way around, and it takes them a longer time to find their way into a Grand Slam. But she's done it the first way, which is, it's tough because you get so much attention right straight away, and then it's like, well, I still need to figure out my game and how it and all this attention, how that all fits in. So I think she's doing really well actually. She seems to be a pretty calm person from what I can see, pretty level-headed. So yeah, I think the only way is up for her still, really. There's so much potential there, and I think clay is actually her weakest surface of the three main surfaces.
Right.
So it's quite scary actually. If she's starting to click on clay as well, then she could be pushing the top two players pretty soon for those top two rankings. So it's exciting, I think.
Yeah, I think she's a great player to watch. For me, I don't identify significant weaknesses in her game. Some of the commentators might see that between specific matches or tournaments or whatever, but overall, she's shown she's got the whole package. It's just whether she delivers it at each tournament, which is very important.
All right, 2 from 2.
Okay, so question number 3. What I want to know is, in that women's final in Rome, how many games did she play in the entire final?
You'd love this. This is your new favourite question.
Number of games that she has played in the final. So your options are 11, 13, 15, and 17.
Just how many games were played in total in the match?
How many games were played in total, winning them or losing them?
Something's telling me the first set was 6-4 or something like that. And then the second set was only 1 or 2 games, I think. What were the options again?
11, 13, 15, and 17.
I'm torn between the first two. 6-4, I think 6-4 was the first set, so that's 10, and then it's...
Well, we know to take with your scores based on the way you're debating it, so that's good to start.
Sorry?
We know you're up to date on how the match went down.
Well, I don't know if I am. You tell me. I'll go with the first option. I'll go with 11. I don't know why. It's just kind of... I feel like it was 11? 1-1. Yeah.
You are correct. 3 out of 3. Oh. Yes, it was indeed 11 games that Rybakina had managed to play in the final before Kalinina? Kalinina? Yeah, that seems better, actually. Before she retired due to injury. So, interesting. It was 6-4 in the first set and then 1-love in the second set. What do you think of that first set?
To be honest, I've only seen brief highlights, but I think, I don't know. I can comment more on the injury. The injury for me was a consequence of maybe this player not getting to the latter stages of tournaments that often, as in, you got to back it up match to match to match. I think, especially on clay, the physicality really takes its toll, and if you haven't have much experience of stringing those matches together, especially in a big tournament like a Masters, then something like that can happen quite easily. I think we've seen it with Rybakina as well. I mean, we always bring it back to her, but the hometown girl. But getting used to playing the rigors of the tour, these long matches, and then getting maybe a day recovery, if that, and then going into another match against top level opposition, and then if you haven't had the experience or the training to get used to that, then I think there's a chance that these things can happen. That's just my view.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're quite right with your assessment. from tournaments that I've played in, like even a few matches in a few days is enough to sort of completely put you out. If you're not used to making it that far, it's just repetitive without the strength and conditioning in between and everything. Yeah, so important. Um, cool. So 3 out of 3 so far. So only 2 more questions left. We could be looking at another high score for Ben, in consecutive weeks as well. So
Well, it's
wow,
a pass. I'll take a pass. I'm happy now.
So what I want to know is now that Rome is obviously over, this is the probably the last big event before the French Open. This week there are two ATP 250 events on. But what I want to know is where. And your options are option number 1, Geneva and Stuttgart. Option number 2, Lyon and Genoa. Option number 3, Bologna and Lyon. And option number 4, Lyon and Geneva.
Jeez. Ah, damn it. You might have me here. I feel like Leon is standing out to me.
That might have been because I said it 3 times. I may as well have put an option in there for Lyon and Lyon.
At least I would have known one option to rule out. Okay, we'll go with Leon then. Leon is going to be next week, not last week. What were the other options with Leon? Geneva, that was one of them.
Geneva, Bologna, and Genoa.
Oh, now you've got me here. I think I'll go with Leon and Geneva, but I honestly am.
Is that your final answer?
Yeah, not confident at all.
You're correct. Well done. It is indeed Lyon and Geneva. I thought putting in 2 Italian cities there for Genoa and Bologna would actually confuzzle you because obviously we've just been in Italy. But well done. That didn't distract you, or at least that wasn't your guess. So yeah, absolutely correct. Yes, it is Lyon and Geneva, which are playing this week.
Yeah, I always find it interesting when there's a tournament right before the Grand Slam, especially if it's like, well, I mean, we call it a lower rank. I mean, it's still important. It's 250 points potentially, but
still important. Yep.
Some, players have different kind of viewpoints on this, don't they? Some need that kind of tune up before a big tournament, and others just need more of a rest and like just the odd little hit, a bit more relaxed. Yeah, I think I don't recall like Novak and Nadal playing these kind of tournaments. I think they normally would take the week off. I mean, I say the week off; they still train, but I don't recall them playing this kind of this tournament beforehand.
Not normally, no.
I don't know. What's your thoughts? Do you think? Would you prefer to have a tune-up before? Let's say you're at that level.
No, for me, if I'm not at that level where I think I can compete a week before, that extra week of playing matches isn't going to help me. And if anything, I think it probably hinder me because it's too many matches. Again, people have to manage their schedule, manage their body, depending on how often they play and how strong they are. And I think a lot of players, especially the really top players, probably don't need these. What I find is they're a great way to get some confidence for lower ranked players. Great way to add some points on the board if you're one of the lower ranked players, because when you have these Masters 1000s, all of the players in those tournaments, they're there out for the points. It's savage. Yes, there's more money on offer, but to be honest, these tournaments could be make or break in terms of financially continuing on the tour for a lot of players. Just winning one match at a 250 is still a lot of money. So I think that's more the purpose they serve in my mind. You'll still see top quality players, but maybe not the top 10.
Well, it's interesting you say that. I've just looked through some of the players that are coming in. Ruud is in there. Zverev is in there.
Yeah.
Fritz is in there. There's some pretty big players in there that I'm somewhat surprised that would be playing. Norrie's playing, like Norrie's a high-seeded player. He's playing in Lyon. So there's still a few pretty high-ranked players. I guess if you haven't made it to the latter stages of Rome that's just happened,
quite right,
then you might feel the need to build up a few matches. But like Casper Ruud got to the semi-finals like I'm surprised to see him there. Maybe different players need different things to build confidence, I suppose, and he feels that he needs the matches. But yeah, I think like you said, generally the bigger players they normally would almost taper a little bit before the start of the tournament. But other players don't have that luxury, I suppose. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, there'll still be some great matches on show, but all roads lead to the French, which is it's not far away now, so it's exciting.
Quite right. And obviously, for question number 5, I was a little bit upset about the French Open because obviously it's another sign of a delay of seeing one of my favourite players in action. Andy Murray has withdrawn from the French Open. He cites to prioritise the English grass court season and the possibility of making a deep run at Wimbledon, where he has better chance. He trusts his body. He's not injured, but understandable. If you're not finding that form, he's won one tournament on it. I know it's a challenger, but still, the confidence he's got is probably enough by now that he needs that rest more than anything. What I want to know, though, is when does the English grass court season begin? And your options are all the Sundays that those weeks begin on. Okay? So, option number 1, 28th of May. Option number 2, the 4th of June. Option number 3, the 11th of June. And option number 4, 18th of June.
I feel like this is one that could catch me out because there's an overlap with the French, and you might think, that's a bit of a silly thing to do. But then again, for lower ranked players, you might want to get a few tournaments in early. Ooh. I mean, these are all before English summer actually starts, because English summer lasts for about 3 weeks in July. Again, really not sure with this one. I'm going to say did you say the 28th was the first option?
28th of May is the first option.
Yeah, I feel like that's too early, even if there's a crossover. And then the week after is the 4th. You know what? I'm just going to go for something that's a bit early. I'll go for the 4th.
Final answer?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, 5 out of 5, 100%. That is quite the opportunity that has presented itself. I actually thought that last question would get you. I'm impressed that you remembered there is an overlap. Do you know what the tournament is that overlaps with the French Open in the second week?
Ooh. There's two.
Andy Murray played it last year.
2 tournaments that are on my mind. Is it Rothesay, or is that later on, or whatever it's called? I've forgotten this tournament that's got that name in it. It's either one like up north or one like on the south coast, but I think the south coast is a bit later on. Somewhere north? Or is it... Oh, no. If you're saying Murray, was it the Surbiton Open?
Absolutely right, yes. It was the Surbiton Open, which is suburban London. So obviously nice and close to his home address. You can see both the tennis opportunity for tuning up before the grass court season, and also the locational brilliance of it for him with our family in London is probably quite helpful. But yeah, absolutely. Wow, great week for you.
I'm just as surprised as you are. I win my doubles match and then I get 5 out of 5. I'll take it. It's not a bad day. No, but I suppose I never really thought too much about the crossover, especially when in the days when Murray was at the top of his game, because we were always focusing on the French Open, how he was going to do on that, especially in his kind of peak years where he was getting to the semi-finals or final. You just completely disregard these kind of other events. But yeah, as we said, like for top players, there's like very little time, right? It used to be like 2 weeks, and now it's like 3 weeks maybe between French Open and Wimbledon. But obviously for like lower ranked players or whatever, they're starting their grass season a little bit earlier. So you also kind of forget about these things when you're watching the top players. You're like, oh yeah, like they're going to have the same amount of time to adjust as the other guys, but actually they have less time to adjust than the other players, and they still manage to navigate, the early matches on grass, which is even more impressive, really, especially when you're going from clay to grass, which is the most extreme kind of difference that you can have. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. So it gives me even more respect for them to be able to do that. But yeah, before that, we can't you can't disregard the French Open. Obviously, we've had Rafa pulling out, which is big news, and Novak's, forms are still a bit iffy. Alcaraz lost fairly early on in Rome. I don't know. What are your views on the French Open in a nutshell? It's most open it's ever been, I think. Well, ever been since Nadal wasn't like 17 or however it was when he was the first
it's
one.
the most open it's been for the last 15 years. So, yeah, it's a tough one. I'm interested to see what happens. But to be quite honest, Alcaraz and Djokovic, I'd still be a shoe-in for a very deep run and maybe the final.
Yeah, I guess best of five. It's always hard to go against Novak. You just feel like he's going to find a way.
Jellyfish.
Yeah. Anyway, we will talk more about that in a preview for the French Open, which we'll do closer to the tournament. But anyway, that wraps it up for today. Yeah, if you've enjoyed it, give us a follow on the different podcast platforms and on YouTube. Like it, share around, and subscribe. And we'll see you in the next one.